Hi, Elena. Good morning
Hello,
to you.
Sandhya. Good morning.
Hope you're doing good
I'm
and ready
doing
for the
great.
podcast.
I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, I bet you are. I can see the lovely greens and the blues in the background. You look amazing. Thank you for joining
Thank
today.
thank
Yeah,
you for inviting me.
thank you. It's my pleasure. So, Elena, before we get started with the conversation, I would like to give you a quick introduction and to the audience about Trailblazers and the episode that we're going to have today. Welcome to the Trailblazers podcast, where real stories of courage and change inspire you to take the next step and create your own path. Today's guest is someone I truly admire, a trailblazer in leadership coaching, a global voice for emotional intelligence, and a passionate advocate for leading with heart, clarity, and courage. Elena is not just a leadership coach, she's a transformational partner to executives and leadership teams across the globe. With over 25 years of experience in corporate HR and global leadership roles, Elena knows the pressure, the complexity, and the human challenges leaders face because she's been there. Now, she uses all of that experience to guide others through meaningful, results driven conversations. And we're going to find out more directly from her about her mission. She's the founder of a thriving coaching and consulting practice, a sought after speaker, and a mentor for women and emerging leaders. She's also an inspiring example of what it means to reinvent yourself with purpose, to stand for authenticity, and to uplift others along the way. I'm so excited to dive into her story, her daily practices, and her powerful insights on leadership, coaching, entrepreneurship, and emotional intelligence. Elena, welcome to the podcast. We are honored to have you.
Thank you. The honor is mine, Sandhya, and thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Thank you. My pleasure. So let's start off, Elena. I want to hear from you. I know you grew up in Peru, South America, beautiful place with all the mountains and the treks. And I know we were talking about it just now. So, all the way coming from Peru and settling down in the US, that itself must have been a very different change and a transformation, a journey to begin with, right? And on top of that, I know that you have been working in the corporate HR and now you're a global leadership coach. So tell me, Alina, what sparked that shift?
Very good. Thank you. What sparked this shift? I think it was a series of things in my life since my early 20s when I started to realize that even though I love my country, at that time it was not the right place for a young, recent graduate to start working and pursuing a career that I wasn't even sure I knew what I wanted to do. So here I am standing in line with 100 people behind me with a manila envelope with my resume inside, ready to give it to the security guard of that building where the company that I was applying for, was receiving these resumes. That was my story for months after I graduated from University of Lima. So at
Mm.
that day, when I look back and I was like, I am one of hundreds and I'm just leaving this envelope to someone that I don't even know what he's going to do with this resume. I step out of the line and I started crying. But I think that cry was a realization that I needed to change, that I needed to do something different in my life. So I went home and I called my brother who was already living in Houston, and we created a plan to where we told our parents I had won a scholarship to the University of Houston and that I needed to be on Monday of the following week in Houston to be able to claim that scholarship.
Nice.
It was all a crafty idea. It was not real. So I left home and I came to Houston and I studied to get my TOEFL exam and my GMAT, and I was able to actually get into my master's program with a full scholarship, and that was the beginning really of my life here in Houston. I was supposed to go back to Lima now with a master's degree, but as many stories of immigrants, I never went back. I started working
Right.
in a hotel in the overnight shift while I was going to school. So from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., I worked at the front desk. 7 a.m., I would go home, take a shower, eat something, go to school, study. I would come home, take a nap, and then do this over and over again. I did it for 2 years until I graduated. And I was offered a different role in the same hotel. My master's is in hotel and restaurant management. So I was promoted and promoted until one day the hotel was sold. Therefore, my H-1B visa was no longer valid. So the hotel company sent me to a different hotel in Mexico, same hotel company to Mexico, where I worked for a year. And when I came back to Houston, the former director of human resources for that previous company, she found out that I was in Houston and she said, I want you to work with me in human resources. And that was the beginning of my career in human resources without me even knowing
Knowing.
really what human resources was or what I was going to do. But she saw in me something that I didn't see in myself. And obviously, working with people has been my life. That answer your question,
Yeah,
Cynthia.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And through your story, you have explained the journey that you went through, working so hard, studying in the night, right? Working through the night and then studying. And I don't know when you found time to do your assignments and work for the master's program. So, personally, I went through the same thing. So, I can understand how difficult it must have been for you. So, that was a very inspiring story, Elena. And you must be feeling very proud. I'm sure you're a trailblazer in your family for standing in the line and then moving to the US all by yourself and coming to a point where you're able to build a career all by yourself, right? So that's amazing.
I'm definitely proud of what I've been able to accomplish, and I know my family is proud of as well of what I've been able to accomplish, especially because I'm the last one of 7 children. So I know all those eyes, all those 12 eyes have been on top of me all these years.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, I do this more than ever now to inspire my son. I have one child, he's a teenager, and everything I do now is thinking about how can I lead by example for this young person that
Right.
is about to start that journey that I started to get to this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, that's very nice, Alina. So I know I heard from your Instagram posts and also on your LinkedIn. I hear you often saying that I hold up the mirror for the leaders. So what does that look like in your coaching sessions?
I like that question, and thank you. You've really done your homework in looking at my contents. Thank you, Sandhya. So when I say I hold the mirror, it's not that I'm actually holding a mirror in front of the client. What that means, and I explained this to them from the beginning of our coaching engagement, is that as I just told you my story since I was a young person, everybody has a story behind them that has formed them and created who they are at this moment in their life. That story is held here in the subconscious mind or in the primitive brain. And that primitive brain or subconscious mind is what's really driving our behaviors, our decisions, and therefore getting us the results that we do every day, right? I don't know if you've heard that we think the thoughts we think are 95% the same thoughts we thought yesterday and the same thoughts we thought before. So
Yeah,
if we're thinking the same thoughts, we're behaving the same way.
right.
So when I say I hold a mirror for my clients, is I bring that subconscious mind, that primitive brain, what I call the remote control that has been running our lives. I bring them in front of them, not mine, their brain,
There,
their remote control. And when I do that, their lenses expand. It's a panoramic view now of their selves.
right,
So when they're able to see that, bigger, more opportunities open up for them to make the decisions, to have more options for whatever they're facing at that moment, for the reason they come to look for my help. So that's the mirror that I hold for them. And how do I do that? By deep listening and asking the right questions.
right.
As a coach, as an executive coach, I usually do not give advice only when it's needed. I tap into my client's own wisdom because everybody has their wisdom. And
Right.
that's the holding up the mirror, is that you can come up with those options. You
Yeah.
just didn't know that you had.
I completely understand the kind of reflective inquiry and the conversations that you must be having with your executives and your clientele. And that is actually showing up on what kind of powerful conversations you're having with them, right? So that's amazing, Alina. And I love the way you kind of like narrated how you're acting as a mirror and how you're showing their own picture in the widescreen display in front of them, right? So
Yeah.
that must be helping them find their own answers. So that's really nice.
It does. And that's what really fulfills me and drives me to do this work, is because when they open their eyes and see this bigger panoramic view, it's just a beautiful moment, right? When they're
Mm.
like, I see now.
Yeah,
I can touch it now. I can see it. And therefore their confidence is elevated.
yeah,
And so next session they're more confident. And
yeah.
in that way it's like a developmental
Mm.
progression in the coaching engagement.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. So, Elena, I know that you coach leaders across industries and continents. What are some of the common patterns you might have observed?
Yes, I've had the privilege to coach individuals, leaders from all corners of the world, from Brazil all the way to Singapore to Scotland. The beauty of being able to do that is that you're able to see that behind a culture, behind a way of being, behind stereotypes, there is that human complexity that is very common to everybody. It's very common everywhere in the world.
Mm.
That human complexity is that group of dreams and limiting beliefs all combined. And what I see in common, or the patterns that I see in people, is that leaders think that what they see in front of them, the person that they're seeing in front of them, let's say their teams, are what they see.
Okay.
But it's really not. What they see is not really who they are, because of that complexity, right? So they're not able to pass that barrier because we're not courageous enough and equipped to bring those walls down. And what I talk about, in my speaking engagements, especially in front of audiences, is that everything starts with curiosity and meaningful conversation, right? And when we're curious really about the person in front of us, a whole world starts to show up, and you see all those walls coming down. And the same with the other person, they're able to see that the other leader in front of them is actually interested and caring and wants to know. So when that level of conversation is matched, magic happens and a lot of things change. So that's what I see is that wall that most of us feel like it's there, but it's really an invisible wall.
So, irrespective of the cultures, irrespective of where they've come from and their educational experience backgrounds. So, these are some things that you find common across the cultures.
Absolutely. It's I think it's just human to have that fear of, asking, of being
Yeah,
vulnerable. Talking about that primitive brain again, I always explain to my clients our predecessors were cavemen, and they see a lion coming towards you, you run and you
yeah,
climb that tree. And that's trying to protect us. That brain is trying to protect us. So our natural way to be is to protect ourselves.
mm,
But I was telling a client yesterday, when we're vulnerable, when we open up and become curious and ask those questions genuinely, we realized it wasn't a lion. It was a beautiful dog that you can pet and,
yeah,
come bring to you.
yeah,
And if everybody could see other humans and interactions with people that way, um, our our world will be different,
yeah.
and the workplace will be different. That's my purpose, is to really transform those cultures with that theory of mine.
Yeah, yeah. It's really important, as you had been talking about it quite a lot in all of your interviews and speeches as well. Emotional intelligence seems to be the heart of your work.
Yes,
Why do you think it's so important, especially for leaders today?
because we are emotional beings. Everything that we do, say, decide, how we get motivated, how we interact with others is driven by emotions. Right now, I'm excited to share my
Yeah,
message with you. Later on, I might be, I don't know, sad. And later on, I might be happy or tired or disappointed or frustrated. You see, so every moment of our life is driven by some kind of emotion. And
right.
emotions are data, right? This is information, data that we don't know how to use
Mm,
and manage
mm,
for for the sake of the outcomes that we want to accomplish in life. So leaders, you asked specifically about leaders. If leaders are able to learn how to recognize their emotions and in a way understand the emotions of others, the way we communicate, the way we lead, and the way we motivate others will be so much more aligned. And alignment doesn't mean that we all have to be exactly equal. Alignment to me means that there's a clear understanding of where I am and where you are. Therefore, we can have a discussion, a conversation, and agree to do whatever we need to do to get the outcome that we're looking for. That's
mm,
when collaboration improves, decision making improves, engagement improves, that psychological safety we talk about all the time improves, because the leader, first of all, is managing their emotions, is listening to their emotions, and is able to regulate, self regulate, depending
mhm.
on the situation. That to me is the foundation of emotional intelligence.
I think nowadays everyone is talking about AI. Use AI as your personal assistant, get things better, get more done, become more productive, and all of that. And I love the way you kind of like mentioned emotional intelligence is like data, your own personal data from your own natural instincts. Can you elaborate a little bit more about, okay, between AI and EI, which one should we be more inclined towards to help us out on our day to day interactions with other humans?
Oh, I love that question. So artificial, right? It's created by us. Emotional comes from within. And they both can coexist. I use AI all the time. It helps me a lot in my business. But AI cannot sense, right? AI cannot sense and give you that information that the person working with AI is feeling. There's no detection, automatic detection of your emotions unless you are expressing it into the machine, right? So AI gives us great information based on the information that we give it to them. But the emotions that we evoke, emotional intelligence, is a feeling, is information that we're getting from within, not putting through a computer to interpret. It's interpretation, and emotional intelligence is really a combination of how we manage the thoughts that we put in our minds that create some feeling. Ooh, okay, I'm thinking about this podcast. Ooh, I'm feeling excited. What should I do? And I make a decision on what I'm going to do next. You know what? Let me put some makeup on. Let me drink some water so I'm hydrated. So we make all these decisions based on those feelings, and that will give me a result. I show up fully to the podcast, and the podcast will be, better than if I would have not listened to that emotion. How do you put that into artificial intelligence? It's impossible, right? Because this is the combination of your heart, your brain, it's body mind relationship. Does that answer your
Yeah,
question, Cynthia?
yeah, I think I love the way how you're simplifying EI. For the very first time, I'm actually getting a lot of thoughts as you're mentioning. It's as if, like, okay, be cognizant of your emotions and you generate and you insert the prompts into your own mind about your own conscious feelings and emotions so that you can generate results, right? It's almost like, okay, instead of putting it in AI, put it in yourself. And then naturally you'll become more and more smarter, I believe. Am I in the right direction, Alina?
Absolutely. Yes. And emotions are energy, right? So we are all energy. So when it's not artificial, then the energy is more genuine. The energy is real.
Yeah,
And human to human, that you can perceive that.
yeah,
When you send something through AI, you can most of the time perceive that it is AI, right?
yeah.
But when it's emotional, it's more authentic, it's more real to you. And that's what you want to be. You want to be live an authentic life without having to modify certain things or, create, what's the word, artificially create something. You want to be genuine because you want to feel. When you're genuine, when you feel genuine and you transmit that authentic self, your relationships the quality of your relationships are so much better.
Yeah, I can now understand completely how you kind of like put that mirror in front of the executives and the leaders and how you're able to enable them with their own understanding and being conscious of their own feelings. They're able to find answers which will definitely benefit their teams and their organizations, right? As a leader, obviously, they're going to inspire by being very true to themselves and being authentic, right? And that's so powerful. Using EI, maybe
Yes,
along with AI, but being authentic, going back to the basics of feeling their natural emotions.
absolutely. And there is no machine that can replace that because we're all unique. We are
Yeah,
all unique. Every human being is completely different from the other because of our parents. We all had different set of parents. We all had different set of siblings. We all grew up in a community that impacted us in a different way. So that filter that we have within ourselves
yeah,
to absorb all that education and context has
Yeah.
created this individual that is completely different than the one in front of us. And that's
Yeah.
something that is very important for leaders to understand. When I explain this to leaders, Sandhya, believe it or not, just the fact that I explain that every person that you lead, that you interact with, every member of your team interprets their world in a completely different way because of that filter I just talked about,
Yeah.
then they understand why there's the frustrations and why there are differences, but it makes them more humble. They become more compassionate,
Correct.
not only about the other person, but compassionate about yourself.
Right. Right. And it's very, very important. And as you mentioned many times on your podcasts and other TV interviews and everything. Now, Elena, I wanted to ask you about as a woman, as a woman leader yourself, do you think women need a little bit different kind of EI version than men to be
Mhm.
successful in this corporate world?
Think they need a different EI. Every individual, woman or man, has an area of growth. And that comes again from the way we were raised and in the environments that we grew up and the people we interacted with and the types of mentors that we had and the different sponsors that we had in our lives and the different traumas and experiences we've lived in our lives.
Right.
What happens with women, first of all, women are mostly my clients because women have a tendency to want to develop themselves. They are more vocal about, I know I need to
Mm,
be better in this aspect of my life.
right.
And I think that's one of the differences between women and men leaders is that, and I talk about this in some of my interviews, some women, not all, I don't want to generalize nor stereotype, but I would say most women grow up being told, you gotta be kind, you gotta say, you gotta be soft, you gotta, let people talk, don't say anything, don't raise your hand, be kind, be soft, whatever. And boys are taught the opposite, step in, things, be brave, be courageous, don't cry, don't show. And at least in my culture, that's exactly what happens, right?
Right.
And I would say in Latin American cultures, that's exactly what happens. So, in that way, I would say, for example, I talk about imposter syndrome, which is one of the topics that I help women with,
Yeah.
is that little girl and how you grew up doesn't serve you anymore. It might have served you up to a certain point in your life, but now that you know, something is telling you that you need to step up into your leadership self. You got to be able to bring that voice out that was shut down for so long. And I
Yeah.
help them bring that strong voice out, meaning showing up strongly, stepping into bigger spaces, being more comfortable with different people, with it, men. I work with a lot of women in the oil and gas industry where it's very male dominated. It could be intimidated. I was there, so I know exactly what they go through. But with emotional intelligence, you're able to really bring those walls down and bring your true self into the picture.
Yeah. No, I think what you said is so powerful that they absolutely don't need a different version of EI, but rather be more conscious, be more aware of their strengths and forget about the fears and really step up to become a different person.
Yes, yes, that's a great observation, Sandhya. You said it in a better way than I said it.
Yeah.
I
Just
think it's
paraphrasing.
I think it's absolutely, you're absolutely right. It's actually recognizing how you've gotten where you've gotten and really identify what are your limiting beliefs that don't serve you anymore. And that's putting that mirror in front of you, right? So when you identify what are those limiting beliefs, why do I even entertain them? Then you can't make them disappear, but you can minimize them
Yeah.
and bring your emotional intelligence on top of them to where you feel more confident and use your strengths to come out of that bubble,
Yeah.
lack of a better word.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Elena, for that. Next one, I wanted to ask you about your entrepreneurship journey. I know, having worked in a corporate world for many, many years, more than 2 decades, you stepped into a very different role of having your own business, your coaching, and your speaking practice. And I know you do a lot of voluntary work as well to inspire other women and young leaders and all the pro bono work that you do as well. So tell me, how did it all start?
Yes, I tell, when I get asked this question, I think it was more than anything gradually that I came to that decision, but that gradual decision was unconscious. I really didn't know that it was happening in my mind until one day I've always been a risk taker, right? Leaving my country and everything, and many more stories that I could tell. But I think one day I just said to my husband, I'm going to quit and I'm going to start my own business. And it all really came from the confidence that I got in my last job, especially about my abilities to coach. Um, I got certified in 2015, but I didn't start my business until 2023.
Okay.
But throughout those years, I started applying all the coaching skills that I had acquired in my certification in my jobs. And I could see clearly the difference on how I was leading, not only my teams, but the leaders that I was supporting. And that's really what I enjoyed the most. That's really what would fulfill me every day when I would come home. My stories to my family was more about how, Peter, came to that realization, or how Peter was so grateful that we had this conversation, or how my employees said this to me that she appreciated about me. And that's when I gave my resignation. My boss, who I adore, we're still friends, didn't accept it at first. And then 2 months later, we reconvened and I said, there's no change here. I'm leaving. And it was sad because we had a great thing going on, a great relationship, which I'm very grateful we still do. But now I do 100% what I love to do. I now spend my time, my mind, my energy helping people the way I love to help people. And in my own world, that's my contribution to the planet.
Yeah, I think you're leaving a legacy there, Elena, by
Mhm.
really enjoying. And I can see the joy in your face because it only comes from people who have discovered their purpose, which, as you know, a lot of people around the world, they struggle. They probably live through their lives, entire lives, without even exploring what their real purpose is, right? But you're one among maybe the top 2% or 3% of people who have discovered, and not just discovering, but they're also living through it, right? And you're also contributing, as you said, to the world. And I'm so proud of you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Sandhya. And if I may add something about what you just said, I want to make sure that the audience listening to this podcast knows, because I get this question a lot, is that finding your purpose is a moving target.
Yes.
Okay. It's not like, I don't know what my purpose is. Therefore, I'm not fulfilling my life. I'm not living the life that that I'm supposed to be living. It's a moving target. You continue learning, evolving as a human being. Therefore, that purpose might change. And that purpose right now could be just joy.
Yeah.
Joy because you have your son and your dog in your house, right? That could be your purpose at this moment. And tomorrow that can change. So don't feel pressure to find a purpose. Life is about living each moment, the present, in a way that you feel the emotions that you're evoking are
Yeah.
these emotions of joy and happiness and peace and freedom. Um, that, yes, I feel like everybody should aspire to have.
I love the way you just narrated this, Alina, and it just made me relax so much just by hearing. Don't worry, it's just not a purpose. It's going to change. Maybe 10 years ago, the purpose could have been like just finding a job or taking care of a newborn. Or maybe 10 years later, it could be like, oh, just doing some coaching sessions, maybe. Or 20 years later, maybe it's just relaxing and taking care of your health, maybe. Yes, it is definitely a moving target, and you have explained it so well. And I hope that brings that calm, no pressure thing to our audience because I keep getting this question. I'm struggling that I'm not able to find my purpose. I don't even know where I'm going. I don't even know why I'm working so hard. So these are the typical things that you find from your clients, I'm sure. And unnecessarily, we compare with so many other people, especially with this social media generation. Is that across the globe that you get this question quite a lot, Elena?
Would say there's some subtle differences in the cultures. Like, I don't know if you know, statistics show that South American countries feel more engaged and happier at work, for example. So the engagement rate, the engagement scores in South American population are much higher. Any leader here working for a global company, I would ask
Yeah.
them to go and look at those engagement scores, and they can see that South America or Latin America, Mexico including, the scores are higher because I think it's just the way we live in those countries is completely different. It's the family union, it's the eating habits, it's the spiritual. I mean, there's so many components. When I talk about culture, I talk about dimensions, and the dimensions that affect the way certain people are. I'm giving South America as an example, but Finland is the happiest country in the world, right?
Right.
So I think that has some impact in how we feel about our life, where we're going, how we're living our life, that path that is going to take us to the end,
Yeah.
and how we think about the end. It's all affected in a way by our culture.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you said there goes back to the point where we all started talking about is emotions, how we feel about our own journey, not comparing it with anyone else and not treating it as a rat race that, okay, I'll be happy if I achieve this point. I feel happy if I get to that point. So we always keep on procrastinating our own happiness, our own joy, right? So if we stop doing that and actually, as you said, we start living in the moment, probably we will be more happy and more joyful, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, you said it beautifully.
Yeah. So, Elena, I know that you have quite a lot of things going on in your day to day practice. You have your speakings, you have your coachings, and I see that you're very active on social media and you're a huge influencer to all kinds of populations out there. So, how do you manage your time? That's the biggest question I always ask.
I am very intentional about what are my priorities every day. So I journal each morning after my meditation. And part of my journaling is, what do I want to accomplish today that gets me closer to my bigger goal?
Mm.
In my case, is to grow my business, right? So I prioritize and I put that in my calendar. So I use my calendar as my boundary, reminder that If I said from this hour to this hour, I'm going to do this, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I don't get distracted, right? Because it's very easy to get distracted. But in business, when you have your own business,
Yeah.
focus is key and focus on the right things. It took me a long time to get to this point, but I realized, proved it to myself how important it is to be very intentional on how you use your time. So I do several things. You're absolutely right. But I also insert in my calendar time to pause. So if you see my calendar after lunch, and this is for health reasons too, I grab my baby girl, who's my dog, and we walk around the neighborhood for 15 minutes
Hmm.
without a phone. So that
Hmm.
helped me to be more peaceful, more clear, and reset my button, right? And I come back in the afternoon and I do another couple of hours. And then I go and pick up my son to school. So it's about the priorities and how you focus the times. Do I work sometimes at night? Yes, but that's after maybe I had dinner with the family and they go and watch TV. I don't watch much TV, so I prefer to, you know, write a blog or connect with some people. So, and my family understands that, and they know how important that is for me.
It's so beautiful, Alina. You mentioned like some of the keywords. I'm like, okay, already getting some tag words there for posting this podcast. Focus, intention, consistency, all of that. I mean, you're so diligent in what you set to do there, and I can see how important your purpose and your mission is. And I so admire you for doing that. And, I feel so inspired by listening to a fellow coach who has been so ahead in the journey. But throughout the journey, you had been very humble and you'd been leaving bits of advice, bits of inputs, and that is so meaningful and purposeful for a lot of people to learn from your journey. Thank you for that, Elena.
Thank you, Sandhya, for saying that. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
So, Elena, as we come close to wrapping up this episode, for those who are listening to you right now, maybe they're in different phases of their life. Probably they feel that they're stuck in their life or career or relationships. What is one message from your heart that you would love for them to hear from you?
That's a beautiful question. From my heart, I'll speak from my heart. I would say you're not broken. Don't see yourself as a victim. The past is the past and it's formed this beautiful human being with its failures, with its imperfections. You're perfect in your own way. You're unique. Embrace it. Have compassion for yourself because that's the starting point for the new life ahead of you. And it's never late to start.
Mm.
So embrace who you are. Feed your mind with thoughts that are positive, compassionate, and with love. I always say you're either driven by fear or you're driven by love. Those are the two extremes of that, magic wand. Always flip
Yeah.
it to the love side.
So beautiful, Elena. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
So being optimistic, taking the lessons out of the past, but being present and always aim for the future.
Exactly. Very good. Very well summarized.
So beautifully said. So, Elena, finally, I wanted to hear from you. What is next for Elena in the
Mm.
coming decades? What is next for?
Yeah, I think I have a couple of decades still to go, but I'm enjoying what I'm creating right now. I enjoy this journey of surprises, of uphills and downhills and valleys. I want to continue growing my business in a way that I can reach bigger audiences. And that's why I love the speaking side of my business,
Right.
because with one-on-one, I can see the transformation. But when
Yeah.
I speak in front of audiences, I feel that my message, even though in a lesser intensity, still
Yeah.
can move some people and therefore transform some cultures. It is intentionally and with certainty growing my business.
Yeah. Yeah. And definitely. And this is something that I would love to share with the audience, that you can definitely reach out to Elena for any kind of coaching or any kind of speaking engagements. And I know she is right now in Houston, Texas, but she's always available online for our virtual audience as well. Yeah. Thank you so much, Elena. Any closing remarks, anything that you would like to share with the audience?
Thank you, Sandhya. This has been one of the most amazing podcast interviews I've gone through.
Oh,
And it's because of you and the questions you asked and how much you knew about me. So thank you. I want to say thank you. And to the audience, your journey starts today. If you're listening to this podcast and something resonated with you, today is the beginning. Today you can start. Don't wait until tomorrow. Today, take that little tiny step forward, and that momentum, that action will give you the confidence to continue taking bigger steps. Today is the day.
yeah. Amazing. I love the way you summarize, and you're so inspiring, Alina. Thank you so much for taking the time, and we will stay in touch, and I hope one day we will meet in person for sure. So, thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week, Alina. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sandhya. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Bye bye.